starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
The electricity here in Columbia, well, has been buzzing loudly all weekend.
Passion of the crowd in Williams-Brice Stadium is second to none.
And the rave breaks out in Columbia.
It is good!
Gamecock fans, welcome home.
See how it goes, but we'll be ready to go.
It's time to root.
Let's go, Carolina! It's gone! Touchdown! What a hit! He baked it in! Can you believe it? Gamecocks have won this game!
Here are your hosts, J.C. Sherber.
Oh, watch him celebrate now!
Phil Molinex.
My wife doesn't like hanging around losers.
And Jamie Bradford.
I'm going to tell him, you look like you joined Duck Dynasty.
Inside the Gamecocks, the show live from the Signorama Studios and built by the Barndo Co., the barndominiumco.com, where you can build your dream home here in the Carolinas or in the Volunteer State or in the Peach State. That's Georgia and Tennessee for you Auburn grads. For as low as $160 per square foot. $160 per square foot if you head to the barndominiumco.com, and you should see their designs. They're the coolest houses on the planet. They're so cool. As a matter of fact, Alicia sent me some updated renderings yesterday. You'll see those soon. You'll actually meet some of that team here before football season begins, and we really cannot wait for any of that. Signorama is the preferred sign partner of Gamecock Athletics, and we are proud to partner with them as well. Matt Vaughn and his team are special people, and this time of the year, they're working really hard to make sure everything looks good for kickoff coming up here in a little bit over a month. In Charlotte, but of course the following week, Furman under the lights, September 9th at Williams-Brice. JC, JB, and Phil. JC will be in here in just a couple of moments. It's been a busy morning of sorts. We will be joined by Chris Phillips at 11:30, right, Phil? 11:30, I believe.
Yes, sir.
Last week he was in Nashville. This week he is in Columbia, so he'll pop in. And then at noon, Power Hour with Mike Morgan. Get used to that. More on that down the road, but the golden tones of the great voice from ESPN, the SEC network, and pretty much every media outlet in the country. Mike Morgan will spend an hour with us. He spent about 30 minutes earlier in the week interviewing Shane Beamer with JC on JC and Morgan. It was excellent. If you happen to miss it, go back and catch it and tell your friends. Wonderful interview with the head coach of Carolina football. They also, and we'll play a little bit of a clip of this coming up in hour 2 when Mike's in the program. They also interviewed Gary Barnett not long ago, about a month ago, maybe a little over a month ago on JC and Morgan. Gary Barnett, former head coach at Colorado, who literally said 5 weeks ago, yeah, I think Colorado's probably headed, to the Big 12. Well, that looks to be true, at least. So Gary Barnett foreshadowing, maybe he had some inside information, whatever. I don't know. But we'll play some of that, and that'll be some of our conversation with Mike today. Plenty to get to in football as well, Phil, with the Gamecocks. If you didn't hear or see what Clayton White said yesterday at Birdies with Beamer about his safeties, it'll knock your socks off. We'll talk about that. Swing games in the SEC, and most importantly, there's no news today that is bigger than this news. This is big news. It is National Chili Dog Day. And I am a big fan of a good chili dog now, especially if it's got cheese and onions and damn good chili. And it can't be a crappy hot dog. It's got to be a real American all-beef hot dog. Get that bun a little crisp, melt the cheese. Oh, sweet. You know what? So hats off to all of you who will be downing a chili dog today on July 27th. With that said, that's the longest intro in the history of intros. Hey, Phil.
Morning. You know what? I made fresh hot dog chili earlier in the week. I wish I had known today was going to be National Chili Dog Day, because I don't feel like we should have that twice in a week for dinner. But we already observed a little early.
Yeah. It's but I that's a chili dog, a hot dog in general, but a chili dog is something that I can do that. I can do that a lot. I love hot dogs. I love good hot dogs.
Yeah. I just, it's probably not the best, nutrition decision to have them multiple times in a week.
No, it's not.
No. But they are so delicious. I could eat it, yes, every day. I could have chili dogs every day, hot dogs every day, and chicken wings every day, and I'd be big as a house.
That again, another interesting summer question. What is the one food you could literally eat every day?
Yeah, I just named 3. And yeah. Not being facetious, I could literally eat those every day.
Yeah. So I'm with you. I also could do cheesesteaks every day for anybody that's asking.
Yeah, that another excellent choice.
Yeah, I would be sure to say it is. All right, it is 11:11. JC, for those of you asking, will be joining us here in just a little bit. We've had all kinds of crazy stuff going on. As we get ready for some major announcements coming up on Monday, July 31st, and we hope all of you will be tuned in that day, and we will we'll unveil a bunch of things that we think everybody's going to be pretty happy about. So looking forward to that. There's JC. He's getting a little gray. Bobby said the Burt's Market on Folly is the best ever. Talking about hot dogs. I don't know that I would disagree with that. They have really fantastic chili dogs out at Burt's. When JC was here in April, I actually wanted to walk him down to Burt's. We went out and sat at the bar on the beach for a little bit there. We didn't go, so I owe you a chili dog from Burt's one day, JC. But that's a good point. I'd say that's Sandy's in Columbia used to have great chili dogs. Used to eat those a lot. Jack's Cosmic Dogs down here has good chili dogs, and let's just be honest, I make a damn good chili dog. So there you go.
I bet you do. I like the chili mustard and onions phenomenon that we have down south is not up here in Chicago.
No, y'all put those like neon green pickles and crap on them up there. That was weird being up in Chicago. I was like, what the hell did you soak this pickle in to make it turn?
First time I ever had a Chicago dog, I was in Midway Airport flying back from Portland to Nashville, and our flight was delayed back to Nashville, as is normally the case in the spring. And I said, give me a Chicago dog. And I looked, and there's peppers and a tomato and relish.
Yeah.
Now, I'll say this, though, Phil. Don't knock it until you've tried it. It's hard to eat because you gotta keep all that crap on there and eat it. But it's solid. It's solid. But, yeah, I've gotten Nat and everybody into the chili dog thing. And I'll go ahead and throw my 2 cents in there. These people are my second cousins. From Spartanburg, but it's a tie in South Carolina. Best hot dog for me, Boots and Sonny's or Ricky's Drive-In. I don't know if Ricky's is still there. I know Boots and Sonny's is, but yeah, you went to school in the Berg. You ever get hung over and go to Boots and Sonny's for a chili dog platter, JB?
No, I don't think.
Yeah,
Boots like and Sonny's,
sugar and spice guy. Maybe sugar spice guy. I don't know. It was downtown. It's downtown. If you were out at SMC, you were downtown. So anyway, but yeah, that's the deal there. So it was. Those are my favorite South Carolina hot dogs, and the fast fare on the corner of Woodruff Road and Darlington or something back in the day, Phil. When my dad had family
hot dog. Yeah,
he had family video there, man. They had that big pot of chili. It would cook all day, just bubbling, right?
Oh yeah.
And And boy, it was delicious. You go there and get a chili dog, man. It's like, man, it just hit the spot. Of course, I was in 5th grade. It was a bottomless pit. I mean, I weighed like $135. I was all head, ate like a hog. So maybe I wouldn't enjoy it as much now.
The fine folks that we have in the Nana Sports chat box today are making me want to walk out of this studio and hop in my truck and just take a drive around the state of South Carolina and eat up all the chili. I mean, you've got Circle. Howard said the Circle Fountain in Florence. And again, I haven't been to. I mean, when I go to a new town, excuse me, hold on a second here. None of these are new towns. I've been everywhere in the state, literally to every town in the state of South Carolina. I'm pretty sure of, but I don't just drive around going. I think I want a chili dog. However, this is making me want to do that. Jan said skins in the upstate is money. All right, okay,
it is. Skins is good.
Jimmy's marred off of Two Notch up there around Spring Valley. Jan also mentioned that, said it's off the chain. Sonder, I know. Look, I get it. I know. But Nat wanted to sit on the beach when they were here, and Bert's ain't sitting on the beach. So they wanted to have a drink and sit on the beach, and that I think it was 75 and sunny that day. So
the wind was whipping.
Well, the wind. Yeah. Well, it did actually. That's not true. You're right. It did rain a little bit before. York said Brandy's hot dogs in Marietta. Okay. All right. Next time I'm that way, that's a good one.
Oh, I heard Harold's and Gaffney was good too.
Okay. I've had one. They are good. Harold's is good in Gaffney. Yeah.
Harold's is a solid roll. Solid roll.
Now, do you like? I don't like it when people have that, their little secret ingredient in the, chili or whatever, where you can you taste like a hint of nutmeg or cinnamon. I can't
just make the chili. Man.
I don't like that. It's like I don't care what your secret ingredient is.
I almost threw an F-bomb out there and said F that, man.
I know.
You get me fired up. No, that's the Cincinnati chili. It has nutmeg and crap and all that. They made it at during a Bears watch party at the place I go, Tavern. They feed us. You go watch the Bears on Sunday. They gave them a buffet. It's usually sausage and beef and chicken, Polish, But one day they served Cincinnati chili, and I kind of noticed the Bears were in a competitive game and the place cleared out. I got sick. I came home and it wasn't because I'd had too many beers. I actually got sick to my stomach eating it. So no. If you want to make a pot of chili and you want to throw a little cinnamon in there, and it's spicy, and you want to kind of do a sweet spice, I have a recipe that uses cinnamon for a pot of chili that you eat with but not on hot dogs.
Yeah, that's different. It's not hot dogs.
I want Bunker Hill chili. I want Bunker Hill from the can. 40. It's still 49 cents. It's probably $1. It's probably $2.90 now. But Bunker Hill chili, no beans, or maybe a Hormel.
And you got Craig is drawing a line in the sand here, Craig. I mean, you're hot dogs and brats. That's an apples and oranges conversation. You don't make people choose, because I'm a brat guy myself.
Both.
I mean,
that's right. You serve both.
Come on, Craig. Why you got to do that? That's like saying, that's like saying Marcus Lattimore can't hold George Rogers' jockstrap. That's just not fair. They're both great. I mean, you can't do that, Craig. You can't do that. You retract your statement. It's not fair.
Retract your statement.
It's not fair. By the way, the best brats these days, at least where I am, are from the Sausage Works section of Lowe's Foods. They have all different kinds. You go in there, you can't decide which one to buy. I usually buy 5 or 6 packs because I don't know which one to buy. All the different flavors.
I went to a Lowe's for the first time the other day. That is an interesting store. It's like they've got little outposts everywhere.
You can drink beer and walk around.
I know. Yes. Yeah.
It's a brilliant idea. People walk out there and they're scratching their head when they get home going, how the hell did I spend $600 on groceries? Because you got plastered at the beer garden.
That's right. It's like, where have you been the past 2 hours grocery shopping?
What do you mean? You got munchies. You bought every damn chip on the aisle. You bought the whole sausage wedge section, and then you bought more beer. What do you mean I just spent $600? It's pretty simple. Oh, man. Well, I'm glad we just wasted 20 minutes of everybody's time today. It's fantastic. We'll hit a timeout. When we return, Clayton White, big on the guys on defense, the secondary, and as pointed out earlier, the linebackers. He didn't mince words yesterday. Pretty excited about the second and third levels. We'll get into that and more. Chris Phillips, Mike Morgan, both ahead on Inside the Gamecocks, the show from the Sinorama Studios. Welcome home. That's what the Gamecocks say, and so does the Barn Dough Company, where they can build your dream home starting as low as $160 per square foot. If you live in the Carolinas, Georgia, or Tennessee, their turnkey process takes just 4 to 6 months on average and can be custom designed by size and details. Make your dream a reality. Visit thebarndominiumco.com. That's thebarndominiumco.com. The Barn Dough Company, Gamecock, owned and operated.
Welcome to TravelingCountryClub.com, your modern golf club experience. Hey folks, this is Michael Manus, former Gamecock golfer, inviting you to play more golf with a membership to TravelingCountryClub.com. With over 40 courses across the Carolinas, our membership provides you with an affordable way to enjoy a club-like golf experience. From the mountains to the coast, we offer golf courses that will challenge all types of golfers, no matter your handicap level or level of play. Plus, we offer unique membership benefits not seen anywhere else as part of Traveling Country Club. Tee it up with Traveling Country Club, TravelingCountryClub.com, TravelingCountryClub.com, proud partners of Inside the Gamecocks, the show.
Hey everybody, this is Mo Copper from Carolina Football. The show is painted garnet black every day by a couple of painters. Go to letmepaintsomething.com to check them out. Go Cox.
You heard Evan Stone, Gamecock fans, 10% off for military repeat customers or mention the show. Interior, exterior painting, fencing, cabinet staining, concrete painting, popcorn ceiling removal, and more. 803-522-6832. LetMePaintSomething.com. Yeah, I had 100 things going on this morning at the same time, and I for whatever reason didn't. Yeah, so no. Mo, we appreciate thanks, Mo.
Yeah,
Mo's a great guy, but he looks nothing like Evan Stone. So sorry that. It's 11:23.
Wonder how that was facilitated. I don't know.
Yeah, that was pretty ridiculous. But we'll save some of this for Mike Morgan in hour 2, because we will, in addition to talking Gamecock football with Mike, we'll also kind of take a drive around the rest of the college football landscape. But it's long been that the SEC would be picked on or whatever. Oh, they got this guy and that guy. Georgia's had their share of offseason problems, clearly. Not too sure that the Big Ten is thrilled about the conversations that have been had at Big Ten Media Days. Now that you got PJ Fleck, having to, fend off allegations and which again, I don't know about a lot of this stuff because you don't know what all is true and isn't true and this, that, and the other. But players quoted in a story alleging emotional and physical harm. I mean, if somebody was beating them up, that's one thing. If you're upset because you're getting yelled at, oh my God, get you know what out of here. But we'll talk to Mike about that here in just a little while, because the Big Ten, Jim Harbaugh, and you got this, you got all kinds of stuff going on up there in Northwestern. It's been something interesting, that's for sure. All right, Clayton White yesterday at the Birdies with Beamer golf tournament, very high on his secondary and very high on the linebacking core for South Carolina as well. Guys, I'm sure that you've seen the comments. He called DQ Smith and what is our safety's name at South Carolina?
Imanwari. And I'm sorry, I thought I was
Imanwari. Wow, today's going well. This is fantastic. I've got Evan Stone and Nicky Imanwari.
A lot of you guys probably know I'm kind of wearing a bunch of hats right now, and I thought the mic was muted when I thought it automatically muted when I was back, but I apologize for the typing and the coughing.
No, it's all good.
No,
it's all good. Nicky Imanwari and DQ Smith, he basically said, find a better pair in the country. Literally, that's what he said. He said these two guys, you put them back there together, and he thinks they're two of the best safeties in college football, and to collectively maybe the best group out there. And that's those are the comments that if it doesn't all go well, everybody looks back to July and says, well, so what was this guy talking about? But based on the way that they both played last year, regardless of what media chose to include or not include Nicky Imanwari in preseason All SEC selections. But last year they were fantastic, and other coaches around the league are certainly well aware of them. You add the fact in that they're really, really comfortable with the fact right now that Marcellus Dial and O'Donnell Fortune are more than likely the starting corners, and you're starting to see some things take shape where this secondary could be pretty special for Gamecock football. Clayton White, though, would go on to talk about his linebackers, and he said, quote, we've got 4 really good ones right now, talking about Stone Blanton, Pup Howard, Bam Scott, and Debo Williams. He didn't mention Mo Kaba. Mo Kaba, of course, coming back from an ACL tear, and they have been very cautious with saying they're not going to rush him back, but they do expect him to be back, and at this point in time, he'll be at full strength. So, I always – coaches are pretty good at speaking publicly, right, JC? You've been talking to coaches for, I don't know, almost 30 years. We know how to read between the lines, Phil. We hear you. But it's also nice to hear your coordinator, offensive, defensive, in this case, defensive, Clayton White, step up and say, I think that these guys are really, really good football players. And sometimes there's a message within the message, and it might be that these groups need to see and hear that stuff through the media, that their coach is actually out there telling the rest of the college football landscape, you might have good guys, but we got pretty good guys around here too.
Well, Dowell Loggins also said it.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, yesterday.
Yeah, yep. Yeah. He also was talking about, well, Spencer gets to practice. He's like, there's not 2 guys like that in the NFL, he said. So I don't know. I'll give Dowell a break for mentioning the NFL word, but
we're going to come back to Dowell in a little bit. By the way.
Yeah, how many guys though on the safeties? All right, so and Nick Imanwari's done a great job trying to get himself better this summer. I know I talked about Kilgore maybe beating him out a few months ago, but that's not going to happen. But Jelani Kilgore is going to play a whole lot too. He's a stud as well. How many teams in the country have a big 6'4" safety? A lot of those guys, I mean, I even remember Curse at Clemson was a big, tall, rangy safety, not the best tackler, right? Tall guys in the secondary have trouble getting low sometimes. Izzy Mukwamu, not a strong tackler, right? How many safeties out there are this big that can get that low and tackle and knock you into next week and play that physical? I mean, Cam Chancellor, was he a safety? I thought Cam was a corner. Speaking of guys that play for Torian Gray. Then you have another monster safety in DQ Smith that's every bit of 215 pounds. Still, he reminds me of Corey Jenkins when they played Corey Jenkins on defense. right down to being a high school quarterback from Columbia. I mean, that'll knock you into next week. And then, that's a strong pair. I mean, how many teams in the country have that? You got, I know Brad Crawford compared Evan Warrior a bit to Mark Barron. I think that's pretty close. I do think that Nick is taller and rangier than Mark, long-armed, and all that. And then DQ definitely reminds me of like a Keanu Neal type, where some people are kind of like, he may grow into a linebacker because he's big, but he just doesn't. And I think he got better and better as the year went on too. So that's tremendous to have those two guys back. And look, we talk about run defense all the time. Guys, there's a reason it's called a safety. Well, because you're safe if they can tackle after a big game, right? So that'll help the run defense as well. As these guys get more comfortable playing, you may not see a 10, 15-yard run turned into a 70-yarder like maybe you have, especially in 2021. But, last year it happened a couple times as well.
It's unique, guys. If that's the way that it rolls out, which is what we would all anticipate right now, Eamon Worry, DQ at the safety position, O'Donnell Fortune, Marcellus Dial out there at the corners. Where are those guys from? Yeah, great state of South Carolina. Yep. Marcellus Dial's from Woodruff. O'Donnell Fortune's from Sumter. DQ is from Spring Valley, and Nick Eamon Worry is from Irmo. So Izzy spent senior year in Louisiana, but he's from Berkeley, Moncks Corner. J.C. Horn obviously is from Georgia, but you look at the pairs that have come through. It's all South Carolina kids for the most part. Besides J.C. Horn, you had Izzy and J.C. and then you have Cam and Darius Rush, or Marcellus, and this year you have Marcellus and O.D. Fortune. And behind those two guys, it's not going to surprise me at all if there's another South Carolina kid that's a freshman, Judge Collier, behind him. Absolutely.
And then I heard a lot of good things about Vakari Swain. The quote I got was in my Spur Notes piece this morning was, that kid can do everything. So I don't know if that means you're going to see him on offense or special teams or what, but obviously they brought him here as a corner, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him on the field a lot this year.
No, I wouldn't either. I mean, I think that they have, not only have they found talented guys, but they've found guys who are coachable, and you could almost call them under the radar guys. Chris Phillips is joining us now with the Spurs Up Show as well, and Chris was spending the time last week up in Nashville for SEC Media Days. But Chris, our conversation right now surrounds the secondary and the comments that Coach White made yesterday about them. We'll bring the linebacking core into this in just a second, but it is neat. There is a history at the University of South Carolina of having elite players on the back end. Welcome, and hope you're doing well.
JC, JB, Phil, what's going on? Appreciate you guys having me. And I didn't catch the exact quote, honestly, from Clayton White. I was actually this morning checking out what Dowell Loggins had to say about Spencer Rattler and the offense and everything. But, yeah, I mean, you mentioned the guys, Nick Eamon Worry, DQ Smith, Dial, and Fortune. It is really cool. Those guys are all homegrown. It's one of those things where, I've talked with guys at other SEC schools, and I've asked them, just how important is it to really put up a fence around your home state? And it's, it's important, but you go out there and when you're recruiting on a national level, and it's like you're trying to get the best 20, 25 guys you can to go win football games. Like that's really what it comes down to. But it is a really neat thing when you can point to that and be like, these are all South Carolina guys. Like that only strengthens in-state recruiting. And I mean, I'm not surprised because you look at the University of South Carolina and it's crazy, guys, that, the history is what it is. But, on the outside of the skill positions, wide receiver and DB, this is a program that has not lacked talent ever, it seems like, at those positions. I mean, I remember thinking back to when I really became a diehard fan, pulling for the Gamecocks and Jamacia Jackson and Fred Bennett and Jonathan Joseph and Coach Simpson and those guys. So, I mean, going all the way back to then, and it just keeps continuing over and over and over year after year. So, I mean, yeah, definitely. I would say, guys, right now, I think it's probably either DB or receiver that's the strength of this football team in regards to position unit. I mean, maybe throw quarterback in there as well because obviously Rattler, but I'd probably say the defensive backs right now, that starting group they have is probably the strength of this football team if I had to, make an assessment.
Yeah, well, and it's building depth. I mean, JC just pointed out a couple of minutes ago, Vakari Swain, Jelon Kilgore. We've talked about these guys. Judge Collier, dude, who every time I ask, his name keeps coming up, and generally when somebody's name keeps coming up, that's a really good sign for that young man as to what he's going to be able to do. And that's I just mentioned it. That's been the history around here. You in order to build a program that is at the level that you want it to be, you've got to be able to plug and play. And the best example of that, hopefully, is right now. I mean, last year, South Carolina lost in that group, Chris, Cam Smith, Darius Rush, a guy who a lot of the Gamecock faithful fell apart about just a couple of years ago, and the fact that he was going to be starting here. They couldn't believe it. And he was pretty good. And maybe Coach Muschamp knew what he was doing. Torian Gray comes in and goes, this guy could play. Those guys depart for the NFL, both draft picks. You plug in this next group, and they're expected literally to pick right up where your highly drafted corners just left. But then we're hearing in the same breath, and again, it is summer. I get it. We haven't seen anything yet. They might get burnt crispy out there on September 2nd. But then you hear these other names that are kind of coming up, and you go, well, if they're getting into the same ballpark with this group who's filling in for that group, you're talking about plug and play, and that's the way the Georgias and the Alabamas do it. That's how you're successful.
Well, and JB, you mentioned Jelon Kilgore. I actually saw the pictures yesterday, him in the Gamecock uniform, and it number one, it lets you know kickoff is near, but number two, just seeing him in the garnet and black, I think he's a guy that could be right up there like Nicky Memori and DQ Smith were last year, kind of fighting for freshman All-SEC, freshman All-American type of honors. I mean, I think he's that type of talent, but you mentioned Torian Gray, and I know that there will be other schools out there that have their own biases that'll say no, we have the best guy, but Torian Gray is one of, if not the best defensive backs coach in college football. I mean, it's becoming one of those things too, where guys, we saw last week Alabama gets picked to win the SEC West. Well, why is that? It goes to show how much, and I know the media, obviously, some folks made a mockery of the voting, whatever, but it goes to show as the whole how much respect people have for Nick Saban. They just give him the benefit of the doubt. I look at Torian Gray in the sense of I give him the benefit of the doubt. There are question marks for sure. And I think early in the season, I'm not worried about the secondary being a strength when it's all said and done, but it'll be tested early. And I don't think it's fair to Cam Smith and Darius Rush to just say that Dial and Fortune will plug it in. There'll be no drop off of me. We're talking about two NFL draft guys. Like we're talking about two big time guys. And I'm not saying Dial and Fortune can't fill in, but I mean, I think we need to recognize and give credit to those guys did one hell of a job on the outside, locking guys down. So, and they're going to get tested. I mean, we're going to learn a lot about Dial, Fortune, the entire secondary. I mean, you think about the offenses and the quarterbacks. I mean, Drake May and UNC, they love to throw it all over the place. I think Georgia's still going to want to throw it with Mike Bobo, Carson Beck. That group of receivers they have is, I mean, it's one of the best group of receivers they've had in a very, very long time. Will Rogers and Mississippi State, I know they're going away from air raid, but they're going to let Will Rogers sling it around. We know what Tennessee wants to do with Joe Milton, and I'm sure after last year they're going to want to stretch the field even more than normal. And so, I mean, we're going to get we're going to get a lot of tests very early. So we're going to find out very quickly, and it's a great opportunity, right? If you're guys like Dial and Fortune and Spalding at the nickel, and again, even Warrior and Smith, I think you look at that as like, hey, we get to go out there and prove just how good we are. You know what I mean? So because they're going to hear about it, right, leading into the season every single week, had this great passing offense and how good they are. So I'm excited to see it, man, because, again, you mentioned Cam Smith and Darius Rush was a guy that, admittedly, guys, I didn't know. I was like, is this guy really ever going to play? He switches positions. But, man, I mean, what Torian Gray did with him, I think that speaks to just how fantastic of a coach he is in regards to development and getting guys ready to play. Because, I mean, Darius Rush in the day, you could have looked and could have argued maybe he was a little bit better than Cam Smith in regards to numbers, right? I mean, I know Cam didn't necessarily get targeted because he locked down his side of the field, but you had a great pair of corners last year. So it's going to be interesting. And again, like you mentioned, they're building that depth. I think they've recruited very well over the last couple of years. And you definitely need some of those young guys to step up because, depth is the question. Depth is the concern and lack of experience behind them. But I think they're definitely capable bodies. And if there's anybody that's, going to get them ready to play and play at their best, it's Torian Gray.
Yeah, absolutely. We hit on some of the Drake May stuff yesterday. His numbers, the games where he performed I mean, poorly is a tough word to use, but his last 4 games just really weren't that good. There's nothing that stands out at all. But his numbers passing correlate with his numbers running. If you stop Drake May from, or at least slow him down from running the football, or at least prevent their offense from creating a dual threat, his numbers through the air really haven't been that good. Now, that's not to say that he hasn't found a way to improve that in the offseason. So I don't want to discount him. With that said, though, that kind of rolls it into this conversation. This is for all of you to fuss and discuss here. You mentioned the secondary, how good they may be, and this, that, and the other. They're going to get tested. I just brought into the fact that there are legs that work for Drake May, and there's going to be other quarterbacks like that. We know that in the SEC. What, outside of the talent that the guys that in the secondary have for Gamecock football, what is most important to their success? Is it up front?
I would say, and if we're looking specifically at that game, I mean, I would say it's a pass rush, absolutely, because I was able to talk with Andrew Jones, and not the Braves outfielder, so don't get too excited, JB, but Andrew Jones of Tar Heel Illustrated, and we've been doing our opponent previews or whatever, and it's really fun because, guys, again, we talked about this last week at Media Days. Like, the coaches are very reserved, players are reserved. You learn the most about the teams from the people that cover them the closest. I mean, that makes the sense, right? Because they know what's going on behind the coach speak. They know what's going on behind closed doors. And as Andrew Jones phrased it to me, you see the warts, right? You see the warts of the football team when you're that close to it. And, I mean, if there's we have questions. South Carolina has questions with their running game. UNC might even have more questions. I mean, they don't believe they can run the football. Andrew Jones straight up told me, Chris, I think Drake May, he said, I think South Carolina can win if Spencer Rattler plays average. Drake May needs to throw for 350 plus if UNC is going to win. I mean, that's where he's at. That's where they're at right now with their running game, unless something changes. So they're going to be throwing the football a lot. I think they're going to put a lot of this game on Drake May. How do you disrupt a great passer like that? Get pressure on him. I think the UNC offensive line, you're going to face much tougher offensive lines throughout the year. And I'd assume, obviously, Jordan Strawn, the entire crew, going to be ready to go, gear on the other side. Desmond Umeozulu, maybe he's making plays early, but getting pressure, I think, and getting in May's face is absolutely, I think, that's way too early, but that's certainly going to be one of my keys going into that game.
Yeah. Do y'all just want me to keep asking questions, or do
y'all? Sorry, I was a little distracted. I think this. Yeah, go ahead, JC. Go ahead.
Secondary is going to.
We got to treat this like SEC Media Days, where you have to raise your hand and we have a moderator.
That's right.
Yeah. We'll go to.
I'll hold my phone up here. All right. So
Chris, who do you think Phil looks like? Just out of curiosity. Chris, did you think you could do what you do without being a coordinator before you sat in that chair, or no?
That was.
Somebody asked me about Georgia.
I was, honestly, thankfully, I was so locked in on what I was going to ask. I, for the most part, zoned out a lot of those dumb questions, but because it's one of those things you're like, okay, how am I going to say this? I don't want to fumble the question. So I was thankfully kind of able to, but yeah, I you go back and you listen, and it's like I heard your point about it, JB, too, and it's like, bro, it's year 3, man. Like that was it wasn't really a story the first go around, and now it's definitely not a story.
By the way, the story from that question is Beamer's answer, because he nailed it. Good for Shane.
Yeah, who else hasn't been an offensive defensive coordinator? Urban Meyer.
Right. I wonder if he could ask that.
I think he did pretty good.
Nobody asked him that because it's just
nobody ever asked Dabo that question, not once.
No.
Look, there's been 3 years where teams from South Carolina and Power 5 have won national championships in the state. Unfortunately, all 3 of them are there. All 3 of them were won by guys that not only were never coordinators before they took the job, they were internal promotions, and then they were in their first head coaching job. So where everybody sits around and squabbles about big names around Columbia and stuff, the boys in the upstate have done a pretty good job. But when they've gone after a name, i.e. Tommy Bowden or Ken Hatfield, or Charlie Pell, it's typically not worked out too well for them. But when they get their guy, with no background and play a guy that gets the place like Shane Beamer does at South Carolina, they do pretty well. Fit is a big deal. Now, I wouldn't trade the Spurrier era for anything. Don't get me wrong. Yeah, great that he coached here. That's no. I wouldn't trade that for anything. But I think it's very overblown. as well. I think the secondary, back to that topic real quick, I want to add this one thing. It's a lot like the 2000 secondary. Remember in 2000, you had Sheldon Brown, Andre Goodman, Willie Offord, Antoine Neesmith got moved back to safety and was pretty solid back there. And then Rashad Faison at the Spurs.
Rashad Faison, yeah.
But if you ever look behind those guys, and John Gutekunst, who was the secondary coach there, really talented secondary coach, he used to sneak these guys on the field, and you'd see them shuffled in and out. They were all true freshmen: Dante Robinson, DeAndre Island, Rasheem Monroe, all kind of guys. And you'd see them come in and be like, "Oh, Monroe's on the field," because they'd have to give these guys breaks. I think it very well end up that way, where you have a core group of veterans, especially if David Spalding's healthy. And then you could kind of even rotate, because Clayton mentioned this, that DQ Smith could move up to nickel a little bit. You could also you could interchange those guys, and some downs DQ can be in the box, some downs David Spalding can be in the box, and then they can all go back and forth. I think especially if Spalding comes back, nails down the nickel job, it's going to be like that. But then behind those guys, you're going to see some very, very young players. And that I think, as like you said, Chris, as long as they stay healthy, that could benefit these young guys in the future. I mean, Vakari Swing gets, or Judge Collier get 20 snaps a game. What are they going to be when O'Donnell and Marcellus leave?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I think they've got a lot of talent behind them, like you mentioned. I think the secondary is in good shape. I mean, there's South Carolina, to say like you can't afford injuries, it's kind of a no-duh thing. I mean, I think there are position groups that could afford it more than others, and I think you have to be realistic. Like, this is football. Guys are going to get banged up, and injuries just unfortunately are going to happen. They've done a much better job, obviously, of minimizing those in the Beamer era versus years previous, where I don't have to rehash what you guys already know about an ankle, a leg, or whatever the heck you got going on. But, yeah, I mean, I feel good about the secondary, man. Again, I think it's going to be a great challenge week one, and I think they will. I've already went on record and said I've got South Carolina winning the football game. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a little lower scoring than people expect. The over-under 60.5 right now in Vegas. Two brand new OCs, two quarterbacks that can be very hot and cold, inconsistent, two running games that are questionable. These teams are very similar, by the way, which I think that line, that the 1.5 or 1 or whatever, basically a coin flip game in Vegas, I think that indicates it as well. And I think that's why it was the right choice for College Game Day. I mean, it's a fascinating game. It's a huge game for both programs, where it won't necessarily make or break the season, but I mean, it's a tone setter for sure. And I mean, that, again, when we talked to Andrew Jones at Tar Heel Illustrated, he echoed that. I mean, he said that, UNC, they lost 4 in a row, I think it was, to end the year last year. So, like, their fans are very much on edge about, okay, this is a must win. Like, we must have this game in order to have the season we want to have, because they're looking at trying to get back to a 9-3, maybe a 10-win season. They're going to do that. They obviously would need to beat South Carolina. So there's a lot on the line, man, but the secondary as a whole, like you mentioned, man, I think I like the starters, and I think there is quality depth there. But while it may be inexperienced, and like I mentioned previously, Torian and Gray is going to have them ready to play. And I think, again, for the future, I think the secondary is in good hands.
How about the linebacking core, guys? Clayton White had great things to say about him.
I think this is as good as you feel about the linebacking core in quite a while. I mean, really, truly. And I don't think it's just, I don't think it's just preseason coach speak either. When you look at the bodies they have back with, getting Mo Kaba back from injury, I mean, it's just huge. You can't overstate how big that is. And I know that, I'm somebody, I like to lean on the numbers, and we all talk about the numbers and the run defense last year and the defense as a whole. But I mean, dude, losing Strawn and Cabo was that was backbreaking. That killed that defense. And that was a huge blow to them. So getting him back and Strawn, but getting Cabo back at linebacker, I think Stone Blanton, obviously, in year 2, we have high hopes. Teron Willis in the portal. Debo Williams is a seasoned veteran at this point. And then, of course, Pup Howard, you know what I mean? So also Bam Martin Scott's a guy that's played good football for you. So, I still don't think it's one of the best linebacking groups in the SEC or anything, but I do think it's across the board, right? We've talked before that you normally have like that one guy and then it kind of drops off. And I thought, I did read some of Clayton White's comments about the linebacker group. I thought he was very, like, you could read between the lines very easily when he was like, Sherrod was this kind of linebacker, Brad Johnson was this, but these guys are this. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, okay, he's telling me he feels like they have upgraded. Like that's the way I took it. And I don't think he was being, obviously, disrespectful or anything, but he's just saying that, like, we feel good about this room this year. So, we'll see. I think that certainly could lead to improved numbers in stopping the run. And Beamer made the point when he answered our question about, it takes all 11. We put it on the defensive line and the interior, but It takes those linebackers. It takes that secondary. It takes all 11 guys. And so improving that linebacker room, I definitely think there's reason to be optimistic that group takes a step forward this year.
Final one for you, Chris. We know you got things to get to here in just a minute. I spent about 10 minutes yesterday listening to Dowell Loggins speak with the guys at 107.5 The Game, and credit to Jay Phillips and Terry Ford, because they just straight up basically asked him, y'all can read between the lines, but hey, you've talked about building your offense around your players, around what you've got, what they can and can't do. Did any of you happen to hear that conversation yesterday? Or no?
I missed that, admittedly. I saw some of the comments from ABC Columbia. I missed the 107.5 The Game convo.
Well, he we'll see. Nobody knows until we see it, but it's there's a calmness about Dowell Loggins that is really, really intriguing, because it almost seems like he's building Legos in his head. Like, okay, that's the gray piece, but you can't put that gray piece over here because this is the yellow wall. Remember when you were a kid and you were building Legos, and you started getting to a point where you understood, instead of just putting all of the colors into one building, why don't you try to make this building blue and this one yellow and this one red? If anybody played Legos, maybe I was just weird, but that's the way that I'm thinking about it. And it started to make a lot of sense, but he also, though, shifted the entire focus back onto the offensive line and saying, we as an offense will design our offense around what those guys can do. And that just basically told me he's not going to try to plug squares into round holes.
And I mean, I think they've been preaching that, JB, since he was hired. I mean, they nailed it in the opening presser, just addressing all the concerns I think that Gamecock Nation has about, are we going to get the ball to our playmakers? Is it going to be simple enough for us to execute at a high level and not be overly complex? And I mean, they've been preaching that over and over. But I mean, yeah, listen, I was talking about this point last year too, that, if all preseason that your offensive line, it could be a question mark, it could be somewhat of a deficiency, at least early on while there's some moving pieces, and I know it's easier said than done, but you got to find a way to scheme around it. You can't just be so stuck in your ways and say, we're going to try to do what we need to do or what we want to do anyways, and to hell with it. If they don't block good enough, it just don't work. It's like, well, we still got to find a way to score points. You know what I mean? So, and I think you mentioned that calmness with Dowell Loggins when you speak of Legos, when one of those big pieces and maybe your most vital piece is a quarterback like Spencer Rattler. Yeah. I mean, I think that's a reason to feel pretty good, because I got to imagine, guys, that, I mean, listen, he's a gunslinger, you never know week to week. We're looking for more consistency. But, I can just imagine watching him in practice. It probably feels pretty good. You're like, I can work with this. Okay, this guy's got some ability. So, and then a guy like Juice Wells on the outside as well. They're just kind of like those pieces, like you mentioned, for Dowell Loggins to play with and scheme around and utilize his advantage. And then, again, there's a rest of a wide receiver room and tight end room that I'm not even mentioning in this. But, I mean, listen, I think – because, number one, you can't be worse. Dowell Loggins is going to be an upgrade. He's certainly not going to be worse than Marcus Satterfield was. I mean, I think at the end of the day, and what I'm predicting for the season, I think he's absolutely going to be an upgrade. I think there'll be more consistency. I don't think you're going to see, a player get 15 touches one game and 0 the next, right? I don't think you're going to see that type of the mind-boggling decisions, but no. It's battling the offensive line. I mean, he spoke on it. Beamer spoke on it. It's just a real concern. It's a real issue. It's nobody trying to talk down the unit. It's just a real question mark. When you look at the numbers from last year, who's coming back? I mean, so they know that. They're identifying that. But if they're able to scheme around that, and I'm fascinated, honestly, guys, to see what the Dowell Loggins offense looks like, because as we know, if you think to yourself normally, it's like, okay, year one of a new OC, there's a grace period. Let's give it time to get going. You just don't have that. You just don't have that luxury this year. I mean, I think if you don't score 30, you don't beat North Carolina. Georgia's going to be its own challenge. Mississippi State could be high scoring. Tennessee, you're probably going to score a lot to beat them as well. So, that offense has got to get rolling. And thankfully, when you got a guy like Rattler, Wells, those pieces, you should be able to do so. But it's going to be fascinating to see just what the offense looks like heading into this year.
I remember last year, Phil and JC, we were talking. I can't remember what game it was after. And whoever it was, it just continued to bring pressure. Carolina couldn't block anybody. They couldn't do anything. And I remember asking the two of you, I remember this, do we run screens here, or do they, is that not okay? Whatever, whatever we want to do. I just, it was amazing. But I'll leave it on this note on Spencer Rattler. Chris, we'll let you run. Coach Loggins said something yesterday that was really interesting about him. Well, not about him, about coaching quarterbacks. And he basically, and you would think that this is pretty common knowledge, but he basically said, my job is to, if he's not in a groove, my job is to find a way to get him there. But once I get him there, let him go. And he said, I turned on the tape last year and I was watching him in that Tennessee game that night. He said, well, I was watching that game going, this guy can't miss. Just let him keep throwing the ball down the field. That's all that matters, because he can't miss. And he said, like the Notre Dame game, he runs up into the pocket and he launches the ball off of one foot and he's thinking, oh my God, no. And then Leggett catches it and he's like, yes, nice throw, so, but it is, I think, refreshing or should be for Gamecock fans to know that there's a guy who sees it. Hey, look, I'm going to get you there, but once I've got you there, it's yours. And I think that's a neat approach.
I mean, JB, it's kind of like, you could use a baseball analogy. When your guy's feeling it and he's throwing a perfect game or he's throwing a no-hitter, like, you don't talk to him. You leave him alone.
Shut up and let him pitch.
You let him be in his zone. If you're an announcer, you don't say anything, right? Like, and if he's not, guys are different. That's where it's your job to know the personality of your dudes. Maybe you need a mound visit and maybe you tell him a joke. Maybe you talk mechanics. Maybe you talk whatever. I mean, whatever it is, whatever he needs. But to your point, that is refreshing to hear. It's like, let him go out there and make ball plays. I mean, he has the ability. Yeah. There's going to be times like anybody else. He's a gunslinger. Sometimes it's going to cost him. And it's just your job to realign him. But more often than not, the good news is him being a gunslinger and taking those chances. I think you like that mentality. You roll the dice, it pays off. And, that's the big thing for Rattler this year. Just raise the floor. Don't change who you are, but let's try to cut down on some of those, those really costly mistakes. You know what I mean? Because you beat Clemson doing it with a pick six and a pick in the end zone. You're not always going to be able to get away with that, right? So do your best to eliminate those, but at the same time, don't change who you are, because it's what makes you so great.
If it's simplified for Spencer Rattler this year, and he is, it could be special. We'll let you run on that note. Have a great weekend. We know you got what's coming up on your show. You're coming up.
We're right in the middle of we're still doing opponent previews today. We're talking Jacksonville State. I found a guy from I think it's the Anderson Sun, something like that, a newspaper down there to talk Jacksonville State football. And then we're in the middle of our position unit previews, man. So we're beginning to talk running backs today. We talked quarterbacks the last 2 days. So we're really getting in the nitty-gritty, man, which is a lot of fun, because obviously I just love talking ball, and it's getting close, man. Fall camp next week.
Yeah, we're going to see history in November for the first time. I'm pretty sure ever.
Gamecocks on Gamecocks. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Nobody's ever seen that before in anything, I don't think. So have a great weekend. Thank you.
Hey, appreciate you guys. Y'all take care.
There you go, Chris Phillips with the Spurs Up Show. And apparently JC's decided he's going to step aside as well. We are due for a break, so we'll hit that. Mike Morgan is teed up and ready to go on the other side. We will dance around the country with him from some of the news, notes, and nuggets from other media days. We will, of course, continue our conversation about Gamecock football and much more right here on Inside the Gamecocks, the show teed up by the coolest club in the Carolinas, travelingcountryclub.com. The preferred sign partner of Gamecock Athletics is Signorama Columbia, and they should be yours too. A full-service sign company that handles design, production, install, and service, Signorama Columbia has helped to bring to life the perfect vision for so many all across South Carolina. Owned and operated by proud Gamecock alumni, they can handle all types of signage, including interior and exterior, vehicle graphics, and more. Go to Signorama.com and find the West Columbia location, or call them at 803-407-9284. Bring your brand to life with Signorama Columbia, and go Gamecocks.
Charleston Fitness Equipment is keeping South Carolina in shape. Clients have come from all over the Palmetto State to find that one piece of equipment that they enjoy that keeps them looking and feeling good. Whether it's a home rower, treadmill, elliptical, free weights, a home gym, or something else, Charleston Fitness Equipment keeps the mirror smiling back at you. Get in shape like the Gamecocks do. Visit charlestonfitnessequipment.com. Gamecock owned and operated and proud partners of Inside the Gamecocks, the show.
If you're in the real estate market in the Low Country or even in the Midlands, please contact me, JB with Coast to Coast Realty SC. You hear me and see me every day here on Inside the Gamecocks, and it would be an honor to earn your business. I've been around real estate my entire life, as it's somewhat of a family business. I work with an elite team of experts from loans to insurance to closing, and they make my clients and my life very easy. It really is elite. Coast to Coast Realty SC.com is where you can find our staff, and you can always reach out to me here as well. Go Gamecocks.
Coach Joe here, and when I'm not eating average jambalaya or celebrating endless summer in Destin, I like to eat pimento cheese straight out the bucket. And the only pimento cheese I like to eat is from Nana's Porch. It's award-winning. It'll melt in your mouth. It's good on a cracker. It's good in a bowl. It's good on a piece of bread. Also, don't forget Nana's Porch has a hell of a food truck. It's award-winning as well, and they're here for all of your catering needs. So get online, nanasporch.com. It's good. Coach O signing off. Endless summer, go Tiger.
Ladies and gentlemen, here it is.
Just as your State Farm agent combines good neighbor service with surprisingly great rates, you can combine your home, auto, life, or small business insurance with Tony Pope State Farm Insurance today. And guess what you'll get? That's right, even more good neighbor service with surprisingly great rates. In fact, Tony Pope State Farm is your go-to agent anywhere in South Carolina, North Carolina, or Georgia for the service you deserve at the price you want. So try combining your home, life, auto, and or small business insurance today. Tony Pope State Farm has been in business for more than 30 years and can handle anything you need in the tri-state area. Once again, Tony Pope State Farm will help you mix and match perfectly. Call 843-851-2222 or visit tonypope.com today. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Nana's Porch, nanasporch.com. At Nana's Porch, they cater weddings, parties, and all kinds of special events. Their meals are served buffet style. In seconds, they're encouraged. Plus, they can bring their mobile food unit to bring on-site and serve your guests as a unique alternative for your catering needs. Inquire about rentals as well. nanasporch.com. Find them on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. 336-259-7550. Hour two. Thursday.
Made it.
It's Thirsty Thursday, Phil. And Chili Dog, National Chili Dog Day.
That's right.
You know, I bet Mike Morgan knows where to find a good chili dog. Welcome back inside the Gamecocks, the show built by the Barndo Co. The Barndominium Co. You can live in Georgia, Tennessee, or the Carolinas for as low as $160 per square foot. They are unbelievable at what they do, and they're one of the U.S.'s best home builders. You can find that on their website and on any U.S. best home builders list. Google that if you'd like, because I don't feel like doing it. JC will be back here in just a moment, but luckily we have a better-looking gentleman in the upper right-hand corner. That would
I don't know about that. I don't know about that. JC's a slick cat. I don't know about that now.
The gray, he's got the silver fox thing going now.
Yeah, which only makes him look more distinguished.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. I'm telling you.
Nice thick head of hair, too.
Like
he's always been that way.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Bruin Nation asks a question about the agreement with the Garnet Trust and the university. That's an agreement with Learfield, but we'll let JC get into that a little bit more in just a while, if we can get to it today. But it's hey, look, all is good. We'll just put it that way. All is good, and all is always good when Mike Morgan is on. Mike, we will certainly get into some Gamecock stuff here in a minute and dance around the SEC, but historically, although Georgia's had their issues, of course, this offseason, not good ones, but historically, it's this time of the year when the fine folks of media days from coast to coast like to kind of pick on what's happening in the Southeastern Conference. But I'm pretty sure this year the off-the-field stuff, the Big Ten is kind of cutting their own cake with that. Now you got really strange allegations against PJ Fleck, and apparently you have to clap for him when he walks in the room. I don't know what's going on up there. Have you kept up with it? What are you seeing out of the Big Ten?
Well, the PJ look, I've been a PJ Fleck proponent just from a standpoint, like if I was a program that needed an instant boost of adrenaline, and he has a Bruce Pearl side to him that I think would be good for a program that has struggled to win over time, which is certainly what Minnesota is and was when he got the job. I thought Tennessee would go after PJ Fleck years ago. And maybe they did. Maybe we just don't know if the money was right or what have you, or where PJ ultimately wants to be. So the timing of this is rather odd. I mean, it's on the heels of the Northwestern scandal. Now, that thing is like legit bad. And then you've got an AD who I don't know what kind of screening process was going on when they hired him. But if you look at his background, it's an embarrassment.
You're talking about the Northwestern AD.
The Northwestern AD, yeah.
He's only been there since September, right?
Right. But did they do any research at all? Because it's all over the place now, and it's not a good look. So I'm the reason I bring up Northwestern is because I don't think these are apples to apples. And I also find the timing curious because it's like, okay, all this was kept quiet on PJ Fleck, and then Northwestern comes out and it's like all this. It's a feeding frenzy type effect. It seems like. I don't. Long story short, I don't know enough about the Fleck situation to say that he's culpable of this, that, and the other, or the program's in rough shape. I mean, he's done some pretty good things in a short amount of time over there in terms of winning. Maybe something comes out that he's just the second coming of Darth Vader. I don't know, but here's what my overarching thought is on the media days as a whole. Now that we're pretty much done with the Power Five, is that the Big Ten, even with the Northwestern scandal, and the SEC just kind of rolled in their media days with like, hey man, we're it. We are the you know what, and everybody embrace it. We're not going anywhere, and we are better than everybody else except us too. The SEC and Big Ten. They're kind of neighbors in this department. Now, top to bottom, the SEC is a better league. I don't think many people would argue with that. But in terms of overall cachet, overall power at the top, we'll get to the middle in a moment. The SEC and the Big Ten know that nobody stacks up. Whereas the ACC, the Big 12 to an extent, and I know we'll get into the Colorado story in a moment. And then, of course, the Pac debacle, they kind of roll in almost, with their guard up. Like, okay, I know we're going to take some punches. Here's my pre-written responses to all this. Mm-hmm. If you're Klyavkov of the Pac, you just live in a world of denial and you pretend like everything is hunky-dory, and then you look even worse. If you're the ACC, you're trying to damage control the fact that clearly there are teams that want out of there and want out of their contract. You're trying to damage control the fact that your one kind of powerhouse has had a couple of down years in Clemson, and you're trying to overcome the fact that the middle of the ACC has been terribly soft. And then if you're the Big 12, I actually think you're overall pretty optimistic, But you also have to, again, have your guard up a little bit because you had to handle questions about losing Texas and Oklahoma, the biggest brands in your league. So that's the difference between all 5 of the Power 5. The SEC and Big Ten are just sitting there. They're in a different universe. I mean, they are just like, they got flying cars. They've got free internet, super speed everywhere.
Careful. Didn't you see the meeting on the Hill yesterday? There's aliens all around us.
Oh, the UFOs. Yeah. Well, they got those under control. The pack. I mean, the aliens are like taking over. They're like, cooking an omelet in the kitchen in Pac-Land. But the Big Ten, the SEC, they're putting the aliens to work. They're like having them doing landscaping outside because those conferences are so unbelievably strong. But that's just what stands out to me. The chasm between the SEC and the Big Ten versus everybody else is so large right now. I got into a big dispute on another show yesterday, and I like the guy that I was on with, but he's under the impression that the NCAA rules college football. It does not. The NCAA is a weakling when it comes to college football, and if you look at what happened with Tennessee and the sanctions or lack thereof, you ought to get a better idea of just who runs college football, because they basically threatened litigation with their lawyers, and the NCAA said, okay, no bowl ban. You go ahead and play. You got money in McDonald's bags. I mean, that would have landed an unbelievably strong and stiff penalty years ago. Not anymore, because the SEC and the Big Ten are like, look, NCAA, stay in your lane. We don't need you. We run college football. You're nothing more than an event planner for every other sport. And that's nice. You do a good job with the basketball tournament and the baseball tournament, but we don't need you. So we control all the money in college football. We make all the key situations with TV deals. We make all the key decisions on expanding to a 12-game playoff. None of that was orchestrated by the NCAA. Those are orchestrated by the conference commissioners, led, of course, by Greg Sankey and whoever is running the Big Ten, which is now Petitti. So I know I just went off on 12 tangents in the first question you asked, and I apologize, and I now cede the floor to you and Phil and wherever JC is.
Well, we just got a note from JC. Yeah. He's probably not going to be back. It's a busy behind the scenes day. So Mike, hopefully that's okay with you. We've done this for a long time.
Hour regardless. I mean, with JC, it's that much more powerful, and without, we've still got enough on the generator to muscle through. We can do 60 minutes standing on our heads, boys. I mean, this is sleep. I'm looking forward to doing this with you guys a couple times each week, and I know that you've got a jam-packed show, and I know we might do a little expansion. I'll let you kind of navigate through those waters for Monday. Your audience. But
Monday,
okay, there you go. Yep. But no, I'm excited about this, and there's so much to talk about. I didn't even mention the fact, I don't know if you played the clip earlier. I'm guessing you didn't with the heavy Gamecock conversation, as you would expect. But we had Gary Barnett on our show, JC and Morgan, less than a month ago, and he literally told us Colorado's going to the Big 12. And we were like, huh? What? Huh? And he's the radio analyst for Colorado. I said, are you okay? Like me asking this question? He's like, I got nothing to worry about. I'm Gary Barnett. I coached here. And he said, I'm telling you right now, it's happening. There's too much money at stake for it to not happen. And sure enough, he was right.
Well, we actually had that they left to start with in the first place, in my mind. I mean, it just didn't seem like that was a good fit.
No, it never was. I've told the story a number of times. My first year doing college football on Fox, myself, Laura Rutledge, and Brian Baldinger, our analyst, we went out to Colorado. We did, the day after Thanksgiving, we did Utah at Colorado, and it was their first year in the Pac-12. And I remember I had to write on a note card, do not say Big 12 battle. Do not say Big 12. Do not say Big 12. Because it just nothing about going out there and being in Colorado felt like you were part of a Pac-12 school game, location, rivalry, nothing. It was never a good fit. Now, Gary pointed out on our show, the one good thing was, the fans love traveling to various California destinations. There's certainly some plus to that. And they're very prideful, like so many schools are, about their academics, and the Pac fit in nicely with that. But other than that, I don't see it. I mean, to me, Colorado is when this is finalized, and it hasn't been yet, but when it is, because Pete Thamel doesn't play around. When he tells you something like he broke yesterday, that's his way of saying, I know what's coming down and it's about to be official. We'll have Pete Thamel on the show next week, by the way. Little bomb.
Nice plug. Nice
little plug. And I guess you guys know we had Shane Beamer on a couple days ago, which was an outstanding 35 minutes. Shane was terrific. But that when that comes down, it'll feel like Colorado is back where they should be. It should have been all along. And Nebraska really should be there too, but there's just insane money in the Big Ten. They're not leaving. But Colorado certainly feels like back home. And now the question becomes, who's going to be the next team? They're going to be a 14-team league, not a 13-team league. A lot of people say UConn. There's still talk about Arizona. There's still talk about the corner schools in the pack. Like the pack is just sitting there. I've made this analogy 1,000 times. It's DiCaprio and Kate Winslet just holding on to that little sliver of ice in the middle of the Atlantic. The Titanic is already.
Let's hope it's more Winslet than DiCaprio's. He didn't make it.
Yeah, I know. Well, you just said it, Jamie. I'm not sure the pack makes it. I'm not sure. They're either going to be Kate Winslet and a rescue boat comes and sees her and she barely blows the whistle, or they're going to be DiCaprio at the bottom of the Atlantic and the pack as you know it will be a dinosaur.
Decapitated.
Oh, I like that.
Oh, that was quick.
That was
a T-shirt. Print that.
I woke up and started drinking. All right, let's hit an early timeout. We're a little bit in front of this, but I want to do it now because when we come back, we'll play that clip. Phil, just play it at a break when we return of Gary Barnett on with JC and Mike a little over a month ago. And I want to expand on that. We will get into the SEC and specifically into South Carolina because Mike had a firsthand look at North Carolina back in April when they played their spring game. And this is going to be one of two elite quarterback matchups coming up here in a few weeks. We're going to talk about this plenty, but Gamecock country and North Carolina folks are never going to get tired of the conversation because it is very unique. I don't even know that these two teams have ever played each other with both having this level of QB on either side. North Carolina maybe has had it before, not the Gamecocks. So, Mike, we're going to get into that, but we'll hit a timeout and we'll continue this Pac-12 conversation, Big 12 conversation, and more here on Inside the Gamecocks, the show from the Sinorama Studios. Golfers and wannabe golfers, former Gamecock golfer Meredith Taylor is now a full-time golf instructor in the Midlands of South Carolina. In-person golf lessons are held at the Country Club of Lexington, half-hour, hour, on course 9 or 18 holes. And if you're outside of South Carolina, Meredith conducts virtual lessons. Just send in your golf swing for analysis. Gift cards are available for in-person 1-hour lessons. Connect on Twitter at Mayor Taylor and find her online at McKellarEnterprises.org. Her email is on the website. Schedule your next lesson today with Meredith Taylor, former Gamecock golfer.
Hey, man, are you sick and tired of your business computer guy?
Yes, he takes forever to call me back and doesn't always respond to the requests.
Yeah, same here. I'm paying him good money. I constantly have issues, and I'm worried he's not backing up my network and securing it properly.
You know what, Phil? Let's ask Stone Blanton.
Hey, JC and Phil, if you want a solution to your IT problems, give Heritage Digital a call. Our boy Matt Odom has a low-cost, one-price solution that will get you running right. Call 843-699-1001 or heritagedigital.com and ask for Matt. He will hook you up today and tell them Stone sent you.
Electric Bikes of Charleston offers the most fun you'll ever have on two wheels. Magnum, Velotric, Aventum bikes, and more. And they sell to consumers all across the state and offer outstanding warranties and service after the sale. 5 levels of pedal assist plus a throttle help you handle the southern heat better, but still get great exercise. Bikes are available all ages and sizes. ElectricBikesCharleston.com or stop into their store in Mount Pleasant. Electric Bikes of Charleston, powering Inside the Gamecocks, the show.
Charleston! Electric Bikes in Charleston! Electric Bikes in Charleston! Electric Bikes in Charleston! Electric Bikes in Charleston!
program, like Carolina Rise. I mean, I can't stress enough how important it is to get involved with these programs, because that goes straight to our student athletes. It goes straight to recruiting. It helps tremendously on multiple levels. And I know that it's one of those things you sometimes don't necessarily get to see it or feel it right away, but you will.
The thing that is going to drive us out of the Pac-12 isn't any of those things. It's the fact that we just can't make enough money in that conference. We're leaving too much on the table by staying in that conference. They did a very poor job of not negotiating a contract with DirecTV. It cost them millions and millions of dollars per school. And I think the way that we have perceived the way that the Pac-12 has done business is good business, and that we can't afford to stay in that any longer, especially UCLA and SC leaving. I think it's very soon Oregon and Washington may be leaving, and what are we left with? And if opportunities are out there knocking on our door saying, hey, you can come back here or go here for another $30 million per year, it's very difficult to turn that down. And so you said I can get in trouble. I don't think I'll get in any trouble, but I think it's pretty much a deal that we're going to go there. And I'd be surprised, is what way I should say that is, I'd be surprised if we don't.
Yeah.
The only thing that wouldn't is if the Pac-12 media rights deal gets done, and it's been almost over a year now before it was supposed to be done, and is so good that we can't resist it. And
that's Gary Barnett. That he was on with Mike and JC last week on JC and Morgan. Welcome back to Inside the Gamecocks, the show built by the Barndo Co. and painted garnet and black by a couple of painters anywhere in South Carolina or Georgia. LetMePaintSomething.com for the best rates and the best paint job you can find, quite frankly. They'll even paint your cat. He told me he painted a cat one time. No, I'm just kidding. All right, Mike Morgan rejoining us here, and he will stay with us through the rest of the hour. JC has had to take the rest of the afternoon off, but he'll be back tomorrow on Friday. So to continue that conversation that we were just having, Mike. So there's you mentioned this just a minute ago, and the fact that your response, I think, to the first question I asked gave basically 12 different directions we could take it. But you opened up a little bit of a can of worms a minute ago, and where's the Big 12 going to go once they officially bring in Colorado? It's pretty much a foregone conclusion, it seems, that that's going to happen. Gary Barnett, in that clip that was just played from your program with JC on JC and Morgan, referenced the Pac-12 media rights. Just last year, the Big 12 signed a new media deal through 2030-31 worth $2.3 billion with a B. By the time we get there, that's not going to seem like that much money. This happens every time a media rights deal is signed. We all know that. However, you're also the Big 12 bringing in. You've already announced the 4 programs. 2 years ago, I think, that they're bringing in. Now you're going to be bringing in 2 more. So this this chunk of change is going to get divvied up amongst 14 schools, I think, Mike.
It'll be 14, and I don't think they're going to be done at 14.
But and I'll let you expand all that here along with this answer. I think the question is, do you take the route that you've already taken with the Big 12? They went with the, I don't want to call them the up and comers, but let's call them that for lack of better words here. BYU, Central Florida, Cincinnati, and Houston. Do you take that route to basically level off with Colorado, or are you after a big fish? But if you go after a big fish, the money has to work out for them. You mentioned Nebraska. Geographically, Missouri would fit, but they're not leaving the SEC. So what route do you think they go?
Well, you heard, and by the way, just to give the correct date on that interview, it's actually like 3.5 weeks ago.
Okay.
So I say that just to give Gary even more credit, because he wasn't like just on this recently. He was on it over a month ago.
A month ago.
Yeah, he was already Yeah, he was already telling us in late June. I mean, Gary's not a very public figure. The only reason I got him on, I used to do a college football national game of the week on radio with him. And we did a number of games. I got to know him, formulate a relationship. Now he's the analyst for Colorado football. And I was like, JC, we got to have him on because he's got a lot of interesting knowledge and insight. And that was the last question I asked him. And I figured he might go, well, Mike, I'm really not at liberty to say I work for Colorado. No, he just came right out and said, it's going to happen. And then he also said, if you listen to that clip again, don't be surprised if Oregon and Washington follow suit. Those are the top two targets right now. They want Oregon and Washington. And Arizona seems like they want to jump in the Big 12 pool as well, even if Oregon and Washington do not. So I've been saying this. I realize a lot of people were probably like, Mike, why are you so hung up on the Pac TV deal or lack thereof? And why are you so hung up on Colorado? It's because this is the linchpin to several other moves. You want me to take this all the way to the SEC? I'll do it in less than 6 notes. Colorado goes to the Big 12. That gives them 13. They're going to need another school that's 14. Other schools like Oregon, Washington, Arizona, et cetera, panic might set in and go, what the hell are we doing in this league? We have no TV deal. The commissioner doesn't seem to have much of a game plan. We don't want to be left I'll stay with the Titanic. We don't want to be left like the band, playing requests as the ship is submerging into the Atlantic Ocean waters. So now they want to make a move, but maybe they don't feel like they fit in the Big 12. So where do they go? Well, they go to the Big 10. Well, the Big 10 expands. Now the SEC, which all along led by Greg Sankey, has said, we're fine at 16. We don't need to add. Yeah, but if the Big 10 starts adding heavyweights and you start losing maybe some of the advantage you clearly have over the Big 10, even with the addition of Southern Cal and UCLA, well, now all of a sudden that opens up the door for the SEC to say, you know what, we might take 2 more. We might go to 18. Well, that all of a sudden gets the ACC nervous again, because guess where the SEC could be targeting schools. This has the potential for a major domino effect, because everything's been real quiet here, right? Everything's just, we know next year Texas, Oklahoma going to the SEC, and Southern Cal, UCLA going to the Big 10, but that's about it. And the Pac, they're 3,000 miles away. Who really cares? It all can become relevant to the league you play in with these subsequent moves. That's what I've been trying to say for months now. And at times I feel like maybe I've given it too much attention, but now I don't feel like I've given it enough, because I think it's very relevant.
Did you think, Mike, that there's a situation where the ACC and Pac-12, say a decade down the road, could be something of a relegated conferences if they don't move and act quickly enough?
I think the Pac can, Phil. I don't think the ACC's that we've talked about this before. That contract is so ironclad. If it wasn't, there already would have been teams that have left. I'm convinced of it. Sure. The Pac doesn't have that type of grant and rights deal with, an ESPN or anybody. So they're in trouble. I think the ACC is going to be fine. Now, that doesn't mean they don't have to play some defense, because the only leagues where teams are not playing footsies under the table to migrate to different conferences, the only leagues that don't have to worry about that are the Big 10 and the SEC. Everybody else has the threat of a team that's looking for the more attractive woman to take to the prom and turn his current girlfriend in because she's nagging him, and it's just they all have wandering eyes, with the exception of schools in the Big 10 and the SEC.
Do you think that UCLA and Southern Cal, do you think there's any piece of the leadership at both of those institutions that regrets in some way, shape, or form the move to the Big 10 in lieu of, hey, we could have slipped into the Big 12?
Fair question, but no. I mean, as much progress as the Big 12 is making, they can't match dollars with the Big 10. And for that matter, if geography doesn't matter, which clearly it doesn't seem to for just about all of college athletics, the Big 10 is still a bigger grab, if you will.
Right.
Now, look, we've talked about this before. Is Southern Cal versus Illinois going to do much for the Southern Cal fan base? No. Is Southern Cal Rutgers going to? No. But Southern Cal Michigan does a hell of a lot. Southern Cal Ohio State, Southern Cal Penn State. Take it to the SEC. When the Gamecocks play, I don't know, Mississippi State, does the fan base get jacked for that game the same way they do Tennessee, Georgia, Florida? No. But no conference has where every game on the schedule is just a juggernaut that your fan base is so hyped up about. They don't have to all be like that, but that's what makes a special one special, is because you don't have a special juggernaut game every week. So I think they're more than happy with the move to the Big Ten and the financial situation, and again the TV exposure situation is very, very good. Now, I won't go any deeper into the TV situation, but I'll just say overall they feel good.
All right, couple of things here, just kind of dangling threads on this conversation. One pertaining to the Big 12, the other pertaining to the Pac-12. Who's the last team in the Pac-12? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'll take any team, but I say team. That's a terrible word. Program. I'll take any program out there, but this one. It's
Oregon State and Washington State. I think they're
okay.
Pullman, and it's geography as much as anything else. It's not winning percentage. It's Pullman and Corvallis, and those are just tough places to sell. Those are the ones I'd be most fearful of. Like, why isn't the phone ringing? Everybody else is getting a phone call. Why are we not getting a phone call? So yeah, I'd be worried if I was those two.
All right, on the Big 12 this year, you've got BYU, Cincinnati, Houston, and UCF all in the league for the first time. Who in your July, summer of 2023 opinion do you think has the most successful debut?
We've gotten that question, and it's a good one, via our JC and Morgan mailbag.
That wasn't
yes.
me. Yeah.
That was not you. No, it was some guy in a different part of the country. I say UCF. I think overall, what they have going on there. UCF they've been an amazing story. I remember when UCF was 1AA and they were just trying to get respect. And then somehow Dante Culpepper doesn't qualify for Division I, back when you actually had to learn how to get a minimal score in the SAT to prove you were ready for college. Now we kind of let anybody in. But back then, that was actually a thing. And so Dante didn't qualify, and that's okay. So you went to a 1AA school, and he became a first-round draft pick, and all of a sudden UCF was kind of on the map, and then they go D1, and then they go to Conference USA, and then they bounce around from league to league, the American. And all the while, the dream was one day, if we just get our chance to go into the Big 12. Now, big-time bowl wins against programs like Auburn, that helped pave the way. And as silly as it was to claim a national championship a few years ago, nobody takes that seriously, but it got them attention. It got them more and more brand recognition. And so I think they're more than prepared to play the competition that awaits them in that league. Cincinnati most recently had that terrific run, but I don't know if they're there now. And of course they lost their coach, and BYU is always formidable because they're playing with 37-year-olds. So very often they have a first-round draft pick at quarterback. They
9 kids. Yeah,
right. They have a unique
quarterback
recruiting base.
Welcome his 4th child since he's been in school.
That's right. Hey, whatever works. So I think they're all really good additions, honestly, but I think UCF and the Gus Bus would be the most ready.
By the way, just my some quick thoughts here. This conversation has turned a little bit random, but pertaining to the Big 12, I can't imagine that they're not fielding calls from athletic departments at Tulane and East Carolina, going, hey, we'd like to be a part of this. We just beat Southern Cal last year in the Sugar Bowl. Did you see that? And East Carolina's going, somebody make us relevant because the ACC will never let us in. Please, anybody, someone pick up the phone. Our baseball team, by the way, will fit right in. You know,
and East Carolina is another one. Have you guys been to Greenville, North Carolina?
Oh, yeah.
Have you gone there for
Absolutely.
a game?
I have.
That is a tough place to get to.
Baseball,
there's just no
and
easy
football.
way.
No, there's not. It's in the middle of
It-
nowhere.
it-
You literally
it's in the
drive
middle
through
of nowhere.
fields and then you're there. It's weird. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no major airport within. I think when I went there, I went to Raleigh and drove. Is that right? That's closer
yeah.
than Charlotte, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Anyway, that hurts them because that school has a lot. I mean, that school was UCF before UCF, quite frankly. But UCF has a major market in Orlando, and East Carolina is in the middle of nowhere. But they got
Literally.
great fans. They got a pretty big stadium that they fill. As you mentioned, their baseball program has tradition. Never been able to get it going in basketball, it seems. But yeah, but I think geography has hurt East Carolina.
Yeah, it's crushed them, and they're they would love to be a part of the ACC, but that's never going to happen. So
I don't see it.
No, they're not going to let them in. Mike, this chapstick right here could get into school at East Carolina. The ACC and their academic standards are like, oh, come on, get out of here. All right.
What benefit does it serve for them to have 4 teams in one state too? I mean,
nothing.
No,
Zero.
especially
Absolutely
when we're
none.
playing risk with media deals right
Zero.
now.
Yeah. The only way anything like that ever comes up is if the SEC one day decided we want Duke in North Carolina and they took them. Then maybe the ACC might have to entertain something like that, but I still don't even see it then. I just pride is a big thing in that league. All right, we'll hit the final quick timeout, and when we return, we'll turn our attention, speaking of the Tar Heels, to that ball game. Mike saw him in the spring. Drake May, a lot of people forget, he didn't finish 2022 on a high note, but everybody sure is high on him going into this one. We'll talk about it right here on Inside the Gamecocks, the show built by the Barn Co.
Golfers and wannabe golfers, former Gamecock golfer Meredith Taylor is now a full-time golf instructor in the Midlands of South Carolina. In-person golf lessons are held at the Country Club of Lexington. Half-hour, on course 9 or 18 holes. And if you're outside of South Carolina, Meredith conducts virtual lessons. Just send in your golf swing for analysis. Gift cards are available for in-person 1-hour lessons. Connect on Twitter @Mayor Taylor and find her online at McKellarEnterprises.org. Her email is on the website. Schedule your next lesson today with Meredith Taylor, former Gamecock golfer.
Hey, man, are you sick and tired of your business computer guy?
Yes, he takes forever to call me back and doesn't always respond to the requests.
Yeah, same here. I'm paying him good money. I constantly have issues, and I'm worried he's not backing up my network and securing it properly.
You know what, Phil? Let's ask Stone Blanton.
Hey JC and Phil, if you want a solution to your IT problems, give Heritage Digital a call. Our boy Matt Odom has a low-cost, one-price solution that will get you running right. Call 843-699-1001 or heritagedigital.com and ask for Matt. He will hook you up today and tell them Stone sent you.
Electric Bikes of Charleston offers the most fun you'll ever have on 2 wheels. Magnum, Velotric, Aventum bikes, and more, and they sell to consumers all across the state and offer outstanding warranties and service after the sale. 5 levels of pedal assist plus a throttle help you handle the southern heat better, but still get great exercise. Bikes are available all ages and sizes. ElectricBikesCharleston.com or stop into their store in Mount Pleasant. Electric Bikes of Charleston, powering Inside the Gamecocks, the show.
Charleston! Electric Bikes in Charleston! Electric Bikes in Charleston! Electric Bikes in Charleston! Electric Bikes in Charleston!
All right, Phil, we can do it. 20 more minutes. We can do it. 20 more minutes. JC decided he'd had enough. Welcome back. Final segment inside the Gamecocks, the show teed up by travelingcountryclub.com. We're under 30 days from the kickoff of college football itself. August 26th is when the Flying Hawaiians take on Vanderbilt, for those of you just yearning for SEC football. And then the game of the day, though, of course, is Navy and Notre Dame in Ireland, Mike. And we'll all be – you're not calling that game in Ireland, are you?
I wish I was. I know the Dan Patrick show is going to be there, which is kind of cool for them. Oh. Yeah. They were they were pushing for a remote for their company to do that. And you know how, for those of us who have been in terrestrial radio, trying to get the power, the suits to financially back a trip like that is almost impossible. They finally got it cleared. I think Will Ferrell's going to sit in as one of the Danettes for the shows that they're doing there. I mean, yeah, that's talk about the week of a lifetime for those guys, part of that show. By the way, don't sleep on the Vanderbilt quarterback. Like, one thing Vanderbilt does have, they got someone good under center. And I like Clark Lee.
I do too.
So I don't think Vanderbilt's going to be like the easy out that they were under the previous administration for much of that time. I think they'll be a little bit more pesky, if you will. Those that keep bringing up James Franklin in the 2 9-win seasons, look, everything came together. I'm not convinced if James Franklin stayed there another 10 years that they would ever sniff 9 wins again. But they had the right combination of players and staff and everything, and the stars aligned. But he got out of there when he knew, okay, this is not realistic. So when I hear people say that, I'm like, come on, man. No matter what you think of James Franklin, you might think James Franklin is the next Newt Rockne. He wasn't going to keep winning 9 games in Nashville, but he had a great 2-year run. I think, realistically, the goal at Vanderbilt is always like pick up 6 wins, go to a bowl game, maybe 7 in a really, really good year, and upset somebody, which is what they did last year, right? A couple, as a matter of fact, including Florida. So, I mean, I think Clark Lee. I've sat down with Clark. I've had Vandy in a game in his first year, and he took over an absolute abject mess. But I think he's the guy for the job. I think he'll be there for a while.
Clark Lee to that program, what kind of Shane Beamer is for South Carolina. Like, he's just the right guy. Seems like a good fit for
right. Yeah, and I guess you could say it was a little easier to hire Clark Lee because anytime you're struggling and you hire an alum, it gives you a case of the warm and fuzzies for at least a short bit of time. But Clark paid his dues. I mean, Clark did some good work in multiple spots before he got that job. He didn't just land on it. And Shane Beamer grinded job after job after job. And all that wouldn't matter because the fact of the matter is most ADs were not going to hire a head coach that didn't have coordinator experience. And Ray Tanner put his neck on the line and knew he was going to take severe criticism from the Paul Feinbaums and others of the world on that hire. No one is critiquing that hire now. They all are loving that hire, and they're all loving Shane Beamer. Now, we all know that can change with a bad year or a bad stretch, whatever, but I think it's safe to say that was a very good hire and the perfect fit for that job.
I have we'll do some bold predictions next week, and I have one that'll be bold. Put it that way. This is a first, by the way. I have to make sure we get this in here before we turn our attention to North Carolina and the Gamecocks. William Jordan chimes in says, I am watching your show from a cruise ship somewhere in Alaska.
Oh,
Go
man.
Cox.
Good for you.
Absolute. Number one, I'm jealous. Okay.
Extremely jealous.
Yeah, no doubt.
Number one, thanks for rubbing it in.
That's my kitchen behind me. My damn kitchen. He's on an Alaskan cruise.
I walk outside and lose 10 pounds where I live. It's so hot and steamy out there. It's ridiculous. But honestly, thank you. That's really neat. We really appreciate that. That's a first. I've never had a fan from Alaska. So you're going on the board of your Phil's board. Phil, make a board of the great fans all over the country. We have fans in the state of Washington. Why not head up the coast to Alaska? So
no, that's awesome. I mean, one thing I learned about when I did the Gamecock games, there are Gamecock fans everywhere. I mean, that fan base, they don't all just stay in South Carolina. There's a ton of them right here in Atlanta. I remember we did a basketball game in Philadelphia, and somebody there, an alum, took us out to a great Italian dinner, the whole team, and we were surrounded by Gamecock alums that were from lived in Philadelphia and New York. I remember a bunch, yeah, especially going back to the McGuire days. I mean, but there's a lot of Northerners. They don't want to go all the way south to Georgia or Florida. That they want to go to college and they want to go south, but not too south. And South Carolina is like the perfect spot for them. So yeah, there are a lot of Yankees that are Gamecock grads. And I'll tell you one other story. This was crazy. We did 2 Armed Forces TV games, basketball games, back in like 2006. Mm-hmm. It was me and Lane Odom, former coach, and Dave Odom's son were the broadcasters. And I'm like, well, who's watching this? And they're like, Mike, you'd be surprised. And I'm hearing from Gamecock fans in the military overseas, and they're saying, like, Mike, you don't understand how much your call means to us out here. We listen to you on the radio in Afghanistan. And I'm just like, wow, that hit me. That really just that hit me hard in a good way. But yeah, they're everywhere. It's awesome.
It is a very unique fan base. I used to get a lot of similar things when I was on ESPN, people that would pick us up online from overseas, and I never realized how much it meant until we started doing our Veterans Day stuff and all that. But it was fantastic. Well, a lot of South Carolina's fan base, Mike, is going to be in Charlotte on September the 1st through the 3rd. There's a lot of them that live up there as well, and it's going to be. We mentioned this yesterday that 2 of the first 3 weeks of the season, Shane Beamer has his South Carolina football program in the 2 primetime spots in television: ABC Saturday night, CBS at 3:30. 2 weeks later, Between the Hedges at Georgia. Drake May is getting a ton of attention. He absolutely should. He could potentially be the number 1 pick in the draft. You saw him up close and personal. You've seen him before, but you saw him up close and personal just a few months ago in their spring game. What a lot of people, though, actually forget going back to 2022 is Spencer Rattler finished the year on the highest of highs. Drake May did not. North Carolina lost 4 games to end the season. His numbers weren't good. We talked about some of the X's and O's of this earlier, and the fact that when you kind of slow his run game down, it is affecting him through the air, Mike. So as you get the early peak in, this is a first for South Carolina that I can remember. Phil, we did this yesterday with elite quarterback matchups. I'm talking about elite quarterbacks. I love Steven. I love Connor. I love Dylan. I love Steve and Dan and Anthony Wright and all these guys that played at Carolina. None of them were projected to be high round draft picks. Spencer Rattler is, and he's going up against one. So this is really unique for Gamecock football that they have a quarterback matchup talked about like it's talked about in the NFL, Mike. What do you see here as we're getting into preseason practice next week?
Yeah, and you highlighted why ABC picked up the game. I mean, you've got 2 marquee quarterbacks, so it's not just Gamecock and Tar Heel fans that are going to obviously be tuned into this. Just your casual fan will be like, I want to check out. I keep hearing about this Drake May guy. I remember that Rattler guy. He went off on Tennessee last year. I got to see him again. It's an intriguing matchup. It really is. Drake May is the real deal. I will not only guarantee you he'll be a first-round draft pick, I'd be shocked if he wasn't a top 10 pick, and really could go as high as 1 or 2. Everybody's kind of granting Caleb Williams the number 1 torch now. I'm not 100% that's going to be the case. There's nothing May lacks. The arm talent is ridiculous. That's what's going to jump out immediately. But he's also mobile. He was the leading rusher on the team last year, and he's a big dude. So he's got all of that stuff. extremely athletic, comes from an athletic family that played basketball in Chapel Hill, et cetera, et cetera. The NIL folks came calling, a lot of speculation which programs did, and offered him 7 figures to transfer. He did not. He wants to stay. Tez Walker is going to be their best receiver. He is a MAC transfer. In fact, I had him in a game against Oklahoma, so I got to see him up close, how good he is in competition against a really, a Power 5 team. Oklahoma wasn't great last year on defense, as we all know, but they don't have a Josh Downs. Now, that'd be the one thing. Like, they don't have a Juice Wells. Josh Downs would have been like that second part of that matchup, Downs and Wells. Tez Walker's a really good receiver, but he's not Josh Downs, where you just give him the ball in space and let him cook. But May is special. I don't think his supporting cast is great. They've got good running backs, not great running backs. They've got good wide receivers, not great wide receivers. And then the biggest question to me is going to be defensively. I don't know what they have now.
Well, hold on. Before you go down that road, he was sacked 40 times last year.
That's right.
Is that improved?
Well, the offensive line it's not great. It's not great. Now, some of that, anytime a quarterback takes that many sacks, a lot of that is, well, you could have thrown it away. You could have, you could have done better on your own. But a lot of that was a byproduct. They don't have a great offensive line. The knock on the Tar Heels are they're soft, and I asked that question point blank, eyeball to eyeball with Mac Brown, because I know Mac's a big boy and he can take it. And I asked him, "What do you think of that?" He said, "We were soft. We've got to shed that label. We have to do more to stop that, and we have to do more to get more physical." So that is their kind of claim to fame this year. That is the mantra. Like, we are not going to be soft. We are not going to be unable to pick up 3rd and 1, 4th and 1. We are not going to be unable to score inside the red zone. We are not going to be able to stop teams on 3rd down. They didn't do any of those things well last year. And you mentioned the finish. Now, a lot of those games were really close losses. The Clemson game, they were just outmatched. But all the other ones, they lost close. And I would maintain that much of that is not on Drake May. Much of that is on kind of the supporting cast for the Tar Heels. But look, I think top to bottom, the Gamecocks are a better team with a better roster. But I don't know if you want to get into a shootout with these guys. Like, I don't know if that's what you're looking to do. I think the Gamecocks should be, better defensively, and should be able to keep the Tar Heels to a lower number that they're going to likely have throughout ACC play.
It is, if you want to be a big time football program in college football, and Coach Spurrier, of course, at one point in time had South Carolina right in the thick of it. All of the components are in one small radius for that to open the 2023 season, really, for both programs. But this is South Carolina show, so we're going to talk about Carolina, the real Carolina around here. College game day. You mentioned it. Big time quarterback matchup. You're a TV guy. You understand it. Y'all have the production meetings. Their production meetings are going to be ongoing about this. They're going to focus heavily on this. It's going to be scrutinized. It always is, by specific fan bases. Well, they gave more love to this guy than that. We know that. But back to the point, game day, ABC, probably top 25 rankings, at least for one, if not both schools, big time quarter. If South Carolina wins the game, Mike, what is the short-term effect on the program?
Well, I think it's another notch on the belt for Shane, in that it is a game that a lot of eyeballs are going to be on. On your typical Saturday, like the Tennessee game was unique in that it was a nighttime window and there wasn't a lot up against it. So a ton of people saw that game. The South Carolina Clemson game, as big as that is, and of course the win means a ton, but you're going up against like 27 other rivalry games. You just get lost in the shuffle. And that's the case with a lot of Saturday games. Like, you're either one of the top 3 windows, or you're on where people either stumble upon you, or you got gamblers, or you got fans of those two teams. This is a game that people that could care less about the Gamecocks or Tar Heels will be watching. And people will take notice. And it is another high exposure opportunity to prove that this is a program that is clearly ready for the next level, that is clearly trending upward, which it has in 2 short years under Shane. Yeah, there's a lot riding on all of that, quite frankly.
What will they be going through that week from off the field, behind the scenes? Like if you can, we got a few minutes left here. Kind of walk us through what that's like. The Mike Morgans of the world, in this case, is going to be Herbie and Fowler and the rest of this team. They roll into town, and they're going to probably come to Columbia first, and they'll have production guys down here doing all this, that, and the other, and then they'll meet with them up there. I mean, you've already got a lot on you starting the actual football season, worrying about the game, Mike. What else will be piled on top of them from an off the field standpoint for the production of it?
Well, this might not please a lot of Gamecock fans, but because it's week 1, I know what it's like in those meetings and seminars leading up to week 1. They're going to go big picture quite a bit too. So there are going to be moments in this game where they're talking about something that has nothing to do with the game itself. And I know for like the diehard fan, some of them will be upset. Like, why are they talking about it? This is because that's their job, is to a lot of people watching this game will want to know about the other major storylines.
Yeah, they don't care about these two teams. They're just
right.
watching the game.
Exactly. Right. So when you're a TV audience, you do have to have that in the back of your mind. Like, it's week 1. It's the primer for week 0, with all due respect. Week 1 is the primer for so many people to like, finally, it's here. Thank God. What do I need to look for this year? So they're going to rely on Kirk Herbstreit to tell them some of the premier stories in the SEC. Is Georgia going to three-peat? In the ACC, is Florida State for real? Like, don't be surprised if a lot of that comes through on the TV broadcast, because they're going to it's a national audience that they want to cater to as well.
Can't get here soon enough, honestly. I mean, no disrespect to Hawaii and Vanderbilt, but really looking forward to seeing.
Will Timmy Chang be coming out of
Timmy Chang? He threw for 800,000 yards when he was.
He also broke Todd Ellis's record for interceptions.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Not per game, but he per game that's untouchable. But career, he broke that record. Timmy Chang did. So Timmy Chang was just like, he's just throwing. He didn't care. I'm throwing against anybody and everybody. And whatever happens. Timmy Chang. That's what I think of Hawaii football. There's the first name that pops into my head. It's Timmy Chang.
Oh, that would be a great name for like a dog. You know, like if you got a dog that just runs all over the place, you can't slow him down. That's Timmy Chang, my dog.
Timmy Chang.
Timmy Chang. All right, good stuff. Well, Mike, either you scared JC off, or no, I'm just kidding. We know what he's doing, but. We're happy
he'll
you
be back, I'm
us.
sure.
He will be. He has a contract.
Yes. Exactly.
He doesn't have any choice.
Can I tell you somebody else who will be? How are we on time? I know
you got a minute. Go for it.
Format. All right. I do want to mention because I know we're going to be doing this on a regular basis, and without sponsors, that doesn't make that possible. I do want to mention. Eventually, it'll appear on that nice screen of yours with all those decorated logos and crawls and everything else going on. But Brian Spencer of Palmetto Medicare, a guy that I've known for over 20 years, and I'm sure some of your audience is either at that age or near that age where you got to start thinking about Medicare and all the costs that come with it. Is a good guy to call and discuss the best plan for you. Maybe you just lost your coverage or your spouse lost their coverage and you're kind of in a bind. This is a phone number that can help save you in so many ways, including financially. That number is 803-960-9484, 803-960-9484. Remember the name, Brian Spencer. He is a Palmetto State hero in many ways. He's been doing this since 2005, and he can take great care of you.
Yeah, I have heard that about Brian Spencer before, and I know he is. There's a lot of crazy stuff that goes on out there. There's people like him that fill in the gaps. And
yes, you need somebody looking out for you. And we're all going to be there eventually. Knock on wood. We're all going to get there eventually. You just
That's right.
you hope. You hope, right? But if we do, then it'll sneak up on us. I know that much. What are you laughing at? Do you know something I don't?
No, I was laughing at old school. That's what old people do. They die.
That's what old.
We're going streaking. We're going to the quad.
Yeah.
Who's with me? Snoop-a-loop. Bring your green hat.
Oh, God. Hey, Mike, on a 1 to 10 scale, how close does Mad Dog Mullinax look to Clark Lee? Are they long?
Oh, that's brothers? A great call.
It's not bad, right?
Can we do a side? All right. So one of
I'll work that up for next week. I want a side by side of Phil and Coach Lee.
That's man.
Yeah.
Now I can tell you this: Clark Lee is jacked. Phil, are you hitting the weights these days?
No.
No.
Clark looks like he can he's like Andrew Pinnock. He can just open up a hole for Derek Watson and Corey Boyd behind him. Clark can still play.
Yeah, let's just say we'll both have our shirts on in this side by side here.
Okay, fair enough. Fair, it's a family show. It's fair enough.
That's right.
Long neck curls for Mad Dog Mullinax. All right, we got to get out. Was the music on, or was I in? Was that? Did I not?
It was on.
It was.
We're past the music. We're now officially. This is the start of the Power Hour. Let's go.
Yeah, that's right.
60 more minutes. Right. Come on now. Bring it. Going streaking.
Going back to through the car. Frank, get in the car. Okay.
Yeah.
Get in the car, Frank.
Let's get some KFC.
I haven't had KFC in a long time.
Frank the Tank has.
Have either of you had KFC in a while?
Yeah. There's one. You throw a rock and you hit a restaurant here in Atlanta, but there's a Popeyes 1.5 miles from my house, and there's a KFC 3 miles. You never know when you just need the old drive-through. Pick up a bucket.
Bojangles guy, man.
Yeah.
I hate to do this to the fine folks at KFC, but I'll give my opinion on it. I have eaten at the original KFC in London, Kentucky. I think is where it is.
Yeah,
and
I've been there.
It's the worst KFC I've ever eaten.
Oh, really? You had a bad experience?
It was not good. No.
Okay.
And as a matter of fact, and you'll have to ask your bride about this.
Yeah.
There seemed to be truth because they were all over the place. We saw a guy pull up in a minivan. This is a true story. A guy pulls up in a minivan with an antenna that there's no way he could get into a parking garage. It was a 6-foot antenna on top of the van. He gets out of the van and he looked just like Colonel Sanders. So I jokingly said to my cousins as we're getting out of the truck, "Hey, look, it's Colonel Sanders." And we walk in, and he walks in behind us, and I joke with the lady at the counter. I said, "Colonel Sanders is about to order some chicken from his place." She goes, "Oh, he's here for the Colonel Sanders lookalike contest."
Nice. Now, so you went to like a condensed restaurant. I'm talking about the whole, where the originators, they built a whole like banquet hall type restaurant. That's where I went, and these were the family of the originator of Colonel Sanders. And I'll never forget, I was going in and we were walking in and a lady was walking out and I held the door for her. And I couldn't, my wife's like, only you would say something like this. I said, no, we were walking out. Sorry, somebody else was walking. And I held the door for the lady and I said, "Here you go." And she said, "Oh, thank you very much." And I said, "Try the chicken. It's just surprisingly good tonight." My wife was like, "What, did you just say that?" I'm like, "Yeah, I don't know what the hell I'm doing."
Pay me no mind.
Just pay me no mind. Just ignore
y'all
me.
should try Kentucky Baked Chicken. That's even better. It's right down the street.
I'm fried all the way. Yeah,
KBC.
Exactly. Right.
Well,
KBC.
They tried to point us in the direction of wherever, maybe that's what you're talking about, wherever the lookalike contest was. I said, "I'm sorry, I don't know where that is." She goes, "It's down there by the world's largest frying pan." I said, "You've got to be freaking kidding me." Yeah. All right. We're getting it to go. Let's get the hell out of here. We got to get to Lexington.
And you got to go to the main banquet hall place. Like it's a sit down restaurant. It's not like a typical KFC.
No, well, this was.
It was in a like It was in a. But they had like little town. Things set up all over small town. The big homage
on the side of the road,
and it didn't. Yeah.
But I think we're talking about two different places. I think you're not wrong. I just think we're talking about two different places.
I think so too. Yeah.
I don't remember. I was drunk.
We'll talk bourbon. We know more about bourbon next time. We're going to talk Kentucky culture.
Okay. Brought to you by my friends at Buffalo Trace.
All right, for JC, wherever he is.
Good job, JC. That's a great performance today.
Killed it in the second hour.
Killed it. He was on fire.
Guy, sometimes you just can't slow him down. Thanks to Mike Morgan. You will be seeing a lot more of him in the future.
Looking forward to it.
Major news coming Monday.
Oh, newsflash.
So we look forward to that.
Press release. I like it.
Y'all have a wonderful and thirsty Thursday afternoon inside the Gamecocks, the show built by the Barndo Co. and always live from the Sinorama Studios and powered by sweet, sweet Michelle Wilkins and Electric Bikes of Charleston. We'll be back tomorrow at 11.